Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Chair with James. We're going to um, recap Week 6 in the NFL. That was very wild, very controversially leading, very uh, officiated, let's just say. And just it was wild. We had a week in LA that was taken over pretty much, and we'll just get to it game by game. That's how we got to do things step by step, day by day. So with Thursday night, it was the Giants and the Patriots. Giants and Patriots ended up winning 35-14. Uh, Brady went for 334 yards. He rushed for 2 touchdowns. In the Thursday night win, he did not throw for a touchdown, but he did throw for a pick that went pretty far by a Giant. Michelle on the ground had 86 yards. Bolden ended up with touchdown. Again, Brady with 2 rushing. Julian Edelman, 113 yards receiving. So that was a great night for him as he did his thing in the slot downfield. Then Daniel Jones, 161 yards, 1 touchdown, but 3 picks. He's got some learning to do, and he's going to do it on the fly. Sort of like what I think Dwayne Haskins should do in Washington. Hillman on the ground with 38 for New York. Golden Tate, 100, 102 yards with 1 touchdown. So Golden Tate at least was there for the Giants. But without Barkley, they are one-dimensional, and teams are going to know that. And it's going to be very tough for them to win games going on for the Giants. In London, England, uh, the Panthers and Buccaneers played each other. I got up somehow right at 6:29 to turn on my laptop and watch about the first half, and then fell back asleep. And then the Panthers were leading pretty much the rest of the way. Excuse me, until it seemed like the Bucks came back and they added some yardage, but the final was 37-26. The Panthers win. Uh, this was a Buccaneers home game, counted as, I guess. Uh, Allen threw for 2 touchdowns and 227 yards. McCaffrey only 31 yards rushing on 22 carries with 1 touchdown. Samuel for the Panthers also had a touchdown himself. But they really stopped McCaffrey, did the Buccaneers defense up front. So that was a great thing to see. But the secondary did not have a great day. DJ Moore had 73 yards receiving, Samuel 70, Olsen with 52, McCaffrey with 26 out of the backfield with a touchdown. Samuel uh, ended up with 1 rushing touchdown as well, so he had 2 on the day. For the Buccaneers, it was Jameis Winston. The last 4 years that he's played, he threw for 1 touchdown, but threw 5 picks, but somehow threw for 400 yards. It was the garbage time scoring that he ended up doing. Nothing really on the ground. Barber at 28. Jones, the second, had 10 yards and 4 carries, but 1 touchdown. Olawale had 1 touchdown, and that was a 3-yarder. For the Buccaneers receiving, Chris Godwin, he's been putting up so many great stats lately. Had 151 yards receiving. Mike Evans, 96, 47 for Brait with the touchdown. And O.J. Howard, he's becoming lost in their system. He's had he had 2 catches for 35 yards, but it was a Panthers day for sure, even without McCaffrey doing much. So that was, in a way, it was good to see for the Panthers and Allen, but not good if you want McCaffrey to do well in the game. Let's get to another game. In this game, I was watching. I made sure to watch throughout, and it was the Houston Texans going to Kansas City. Now, this was a battle between Jameis Winston, excuse me, Deshaun Watson, and Pat Mahomes. And this one was good, really good. It was back and forth, really good game. Um, the Chiefs not looking like themselves, and the Colts exposed them. So I think Houston, their defense kind of took whatever the Colts did and used it to their benefit. At half, it was 20-20. It was a really good game in that sense. Kansas City got a touchdown in the third, and then in the fourth, Houston got a touchdown and went for two and got it. It was DeAndre Hopkins who made the 2 point conversion to go, and the final was 31-24 Houston. And a shocker, I think Kansas City is coming back down to earth, you could say, these last couple of weeks for sure. Deshaun Watson, 280 yards, one touchdown, and two picks. Carlos Hyde had a wonderful game, 26 carries, 116 yards, and one touchdown. Deshaun Watson himself had 42 yards rushing and two touchdowns. Uh, Darren Fells, great tight end for Houston at 69 yards, exceeding Hopkins with 55. Fuller with 44. Duke Johnson had the only receiving touchdown for Houston in the game, but it was Houston's defense that did the job. Pat Mahomes, 273 yards, not 300 somehow. Three touchdowns and one pick. Sean McCoy had 44 yards on the ground rushing, but that was all. Pat Mahomes, he had a negative yard run, and that was his only rushing attempt. So, um, he even said in his press conference, I'm still able to do what I want to do, but the plan was to pass and to get the rushing game going. But against Houston, they couldn't get anything going. They had him surrounded. So that was a great job again by the Texan defense. Coming back, this game was Tyreek Hill. He got hurt, remember, week one in Jacksonville. He came back, had an amazing leaping catch into the end zone for a touchdown. He had two touchdowns on the day, 80 yards. Travis Kelce with 58, Williams with 52, Hardman 45, Pringle with 24, Williams with 14 and a touchdown. But not enough, as somehow the Houston Texans defeat the Kansas City Chiefs in Arrowhead. It's an amazing job. Next game was another good one. This game also went back and forth. I know I keep saying back and forth, but honestly, that's what it was. It was Seattle playing in Cleveland. Cleveland, you don't know what you're going to get. It's very displeasing when you have all the hype on the Browns like this, and they're going week by week, not getting the job done. Baker Mayfield, for all he is known for the greatness he can show, is just not there right now. And it's very disheartening if you're a Brown fan as of now, just because, we got all this hype, we got great players, we got a great defense, we got to make something happen. And again, that was not the case. This game did go again back and forth. At the half, Seattle was down 20-18, and Seattle ended up scoring 14 more points in the second half. Cleveland 6-2, 8 at the end, but Seattle came back with their touchdown. 32-28 was the final for the Seahawks. Shout out Todd, next game of Grimes. I know he was watching that game. We messaged about it, and it was just another thriller that he had to go through for the Seahawks games, and it seems like most of them are kind of like that, except the Cardinal game that they had, that Seattle had it throughout. So Russell Wilson, who is probably the MVP in the short time we have in the season so far, although it's going by pretty fast. I mean, these weeks have come by pretty fast. Maybe it's having Thursday night football every week. I don't know. But Russell was 295 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, no picks. Chris Carson, just another great rushing day. Chris Carson, all he does is run for yards. Uh, 124 yards rushing, 1 touchdown. Russell Wilson had 31 yards on 9 attempts and 1 touchdown as well rushing. Lockett 75 yards receiving, Metcalf 69, Moore with 36, uh, Carson with 35 out of the backfield himself. The man Brown had 2 touchdowns and 29 yards. Number 18, he made some tremendous catches for touchdowns and definitely was a key in being open. For Baker Mayfield, 249 yards, 1 touchdown, but 3 interceptions. That were so key. I mean, I can't. You want to give him the benefit because he's young, it's the second year. But maybe it's his mouth, his demeanor, something gets him in trouble. And when he has a bad game like this, he'll blame others. He'll blame the officiating. He'll blame. He doesn't say it, but maybe his teammates in his mind. You know. So Nick Chubb, 122 yards rushing, 2 touchdowns. He was the lone bright spot, I think, in the game. Even though Mayfield 35 yards and 1 touchdown rushing. Odell Beckham did have 101 yards receiving, but no touchdowns. Sills Jones, their great tight end, he had a touchdown with 47 yards, had big catches, as well as Beckham did. Jarvis Landry had only 36 yards receiving, but it seemed like Odell Beckham and Callaway and Landry, they dropped so many needed catches in this game. And it seemed like that handicapped them to lose. If they held on to the catches, we might have been talking about a Cleveland comeback instead of a Seattle comeback. But it wasn't the case. In the Brown division, it was Bengals going to Baltimore to play the Ravens. Obviously, Bengals 0-5, looking for their first win, but they were going against the 3-2 Ravens, the first place 3-2 Ravens, which might be a surprise for others, except the people around the Ravens that said Lamar Jackson, he's doing very well in training camp, and he's learned a playbook. He's learning to pass. He's learned to be great. And so far, he had a great first week, definitely against the Dolphins. But he's been steadily, 250 yards passing, trying to limit the picks, just trying to manage a game. Maybe that's all you can do. On the other side, you have Andy Dalton, who's just trying to survive. People will try and run him out of town in Cincinnati, but he's trying to do his best, no doubt about it. This game was pretty close at the half, 17-10. Baltimore ended up adding a couple field goals, and Cincinnati ended up with a touchdown, but I was too late. Final was 23-17 Baltimore. Andy Dalton was 235 yards, no touchdowns, and 1 pick. On the ground game, Joe Mixon with only 10 yards. That's got to change. Brandon Tate had 91 yards receiving, Erickson 47, and 29 from Mixon. Now, I guess the thing that the Ravens keyed on their defense-wise was stopping Eifert and Boyd. They had 13 and 10 yards, respectively. They did the job on those two because you got those two, and Ross is out. John Ross is out for the Bengals in this game. That also helped as well. But credit to the Ravens defense. They did what they had to do. They forced Andy Dalton into some errant throws. He did get a pick, but Lamar Jackson, 236 yards. No picks, but no touchdowns, and that's okay. He did run for 152 yards, however, and 1 touchdown, so that was great. Mark Ingram II had 52 yards and a big rushing touchdown for the Ravens. Mark Andrews, the tight end, He's a stellar one. He's a young one. 99 yards receiving. Uh, so it was just a good, manageable game for the Ravens. They'll need more because they already lost to Cleveland at home, but they'll need a little more than that if they want to have a shot in the playoffs for sure. But that's them. So let's go to North Florida. It was the Saints and the Jaguars in Jacksonville. Honestly, this game you didn't know what you're gonna get because you got two backup quarterbacks in for their starters, Teddy Bridgewater and Minshew. And this game was a field goal game until the fourth. At half, it was 3-3, very defensive game. At the end of the third, it was 6-6. New Orleans ended up scoring a touchdown, so Bridgewater threw for it, and the final was 13-6 Saints. Bridgewater with that touchdown had 240 yards passing. Kamara did get hurt, so he had 31 yards rushing only. Latavius Murray did his best. He had 44 yards on the ground. Michael Thomas did get one clutch pass, 89 yards receiving. Jared Cook, their tight end, had the touchdown with 37 yards receiving. Cook Tegan Jr. with 36 yards and Camaro with 35. Murray as well with 35. That was the story of the defenses. Cameron Jordan did a wonderful job. Lattimore as well for the New Orleans Saints. Minshew the second, 163 yards, no touchdowns and one pick. Leonard Fournette has 72 yards, but he probably needed 112 and a couple touchdowns to get them on the winning side. On the winning side, D. Westbrook 56 yards, Fournette 46, Chark at 43. But like I said, it was a very defensive game, as you can tell by 13-6 score, and I think that's how the Saints needed it. So credit to their defense; they did a wonderful job. Now, the opposite about the next game about a great defense. It was Philadelphia going to Minnesota. Minnesota coming off the Kumbaya win in New Jersey against the Giants. Shout out to Skull 219. Carlos, I bet he was satisfied with the result. Right away, it was 24-0 at half. The Vikings led and pulled away, scored a couple more touchdowns. Eagles got theirs. Got 10 in the third, but that was it. Final score was 38-20. Carson Wentz had felt like he had a horrible day. Remember seeing him slam his helmet. Carson had 306 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 pick. Jordan Howard had 49 yards on the ground. Scott with 30. Wentz had 26 himself. Sanders, the great rookie running back, only had 2 yards per carry, 3 for 6. He did, however, have 86 yards receiving and 1 touchdown. Jeffrey had a touchdown, 76 yards receiving. Ertz with 54, but they kept him out of the end zone, as well as Gorder and Aguilar. So the Viking defense did a wonderful job. And speaking of wonderful jobs, Kirk Cousins was throwing the ball around very well. He had 333 yards passing, 4 touchdowns and 1 pick. On the ground, Madison had the bulk of the yards with 63. Cook had 41 yards and 1 touchdown. Diggs even had a few end arounds for 18 yards. Stephon Diggs, whatever you can say about him, he did his job. He did have a few big drops, and the interception that Cousin threw, it was off of Diggs's helmet, and Eagle picked it off, from what I remember seeing. But Diggs had 7 receptions for 167 yards, and 3 touchdowns. He was probably the main factor why they won. Adam Thielen with 57 yards and 1 touchdown. Rudolph with 36. So Maybe everything's kumbaya with the Vikings, maybe not. We'll see once they go through some adversity. We'll see how it goes after this. Now, the miserable, as I called it, Washington went to Miami. Both teams seeking for their first win. Probably not trying to get it either, knowing that both are trying to tank for Tua or whoever they want to go for. Uh, it was 7-3 Washington at the half. They led 17-3 at the end of three. Miami came back, stormed back, scored 13 unanswered in the fourth, but it wasn't enough. Washington was able to get some first downs and they won 17-16. This is a far cry from the 72-73 Super Bowl when they both played each other. Um, yeah. So Washington gets a first win. Miami continues to be winless on the season. 0-6. For Washington, it would have been great to see Hopkins play, but they gave Keenum the start. He had 166 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, and no picks. Adrian Peterson had 23 carries for 118 yards. He was definitely the star of the game, if there could have been one. McLaurin keeps having great games for the Washington Football Club. He had 100 yards receiving on 4 receptions and 2 touchdowns. So he did very well. So that was a factor of, uh, of the game. Again, this was a case for the Dolphins where both quarterbacks played. Fitzpatrick had 132 yards. He came in later. He threw for a touchdown. Rosen had 85 yards with 2 picks. That's why he was replaced. And that seems to be happening almost every week. You see both quarterbacks in. King to Drake at 40 yards, rushing Walton with 32. For the receiving tight end, Gitchick with 51 yards. Walton with 43. Williams with 30. Drake with 30. Devontae Parker with the touchdown reception for Miami with 28 yards altogether. So I guess congrats to Washington for the win. By the way, the bye weeks for the week 6 it was Buffalo, Colts, Raiders, and Bears. So you won't see them. Let's get to the afternoon games. At least out here in California, it was a red and gold takeover in the stand. So I'm not talking about the empty Coliseum seats, even though you can kind of see them. But at the Coliseum, it was San Francisco South or Santa Clara South or whatever. It was the 4-0 49ers on a streak headed to the LA Rams, and they ended up they were 3-2. This game was tied after one, tied after two, 7-7, and then San Francisco had 10 in the third and 3 in the fourth. Ended up winning 20-7. Uh, After the third, there was no doubt who was going to win the game. San Francisco's defense did a great job against LA. Jared Goff, as many have said, he he seemed timid to throw, just pressured all day. Uh, to me, and I hate seeing this, and I hope this is the case, but I feel like uh, once he got his extension, he's just not the same for Jared Goff. As I like to say, Jared off. Um, yeah, he's just off. I don't know how else to explain it. I might get some flack for that from the Ram fans, but you are who you are. And Jimmy G, all he had to do was manage the game. Garoppolo, 243 yards and 1 pick. Uh, Coleman on the ground, he had 45 yards on a touchdown. Breida with 36. I was wondering to see how that rushing game would do against an LA defense that was uh, kind of handicapped. They didn't have Weddle. I mean, yeah, they had Weddle, but they didn't have Matthews. They didn't have Talib and a few others. So if there's any blame to go around, maybe it's just excuses not to have those guys around. But uh, you you go to the dance who you come with, I guess you could say. George Kittle had 103 yards receiving on 8 catches. Not Gary Pettis, Dante Pettis had 45 yards receiving. So it was just a good, manageable game. They got drives, they got field goals, did the 49ers. Jared Goff, boy, he choked all game long. Uh, he threw for no touchdowns and no picks, but he threw for 78 yards. 78 yards, that's it. That will get it done. And yes, Gurley was not playing for LA, but his backup was him. Malcolm Brown, he had 40 yards. Henderson with 39. Woods had some end arounds with 16. Cooks as well with 14. Woods had the end around touchdown for LA. Higbee had 25 yards receiving. Cooks with 18. Cup with 17. Everett 9. And Henderson with 9. And Woods, nothing. So it was not a banner day for LA in both places, as you'll find out in just a bit. The next afternoon game was the Battle of the Bad Birds. It was the 1-4 Falcons and the 1-3-1 Cardinals, and Cardinals led most of the way. Falcons did come back with a 17-point comeback, but it's one of those games where, man, you cannot trust the Falcons ever again. They're like the Titans. They're almost like the Texans, but you feel the Texans have kind of turned a corner. Watson has turned a corner. But if you're the Falcons, this feels like, and it's been going around, it feels like a fireable offense for Dan Quinn and the staff in Atlanta. But Arthur Blank, the ownership, they won't say it or do it, but you feel like changes will happen soon. Uh, Falcons did lead 7-3 and after the first, but then Arizona ended up leading 2010 at the half, and then uh, they scored a couple touchdowns. Did the Cardinals, and somehow, some way, Falcons came back, but it was just short. Cardinals ended up winning 34-33. Matt Ryan had 356 yards passing and 4 touchdowns, so maybe it's not him. Devontae Freeman had 88 yards on the ground. Maybe it's a little of him. Austin Hooper, who's been just balling, 117 yards receiving and 1 touchdown. That's a tight end. If you don't have him on fantasy, you better go get that guy. Julio Jones had a 100 yard plus game, 108 yards receiving. Ridley had 48 touchdowns and 48 yards and 1 touchdown. Freeman had 2 touchdowns receiving, 30 yards receiving. So you can say Arizona's defense, they did enough, but they almost had him come back on it. Kyler Murray, you got to give it up to him. I know a lot of people, because of his first pick status, that they are on him. But he had 340 yards, 3 touchdowns, and no picks. You can't get any better than that if you're the first pick and you only have 1 win. But shout out to him. Shout out to the Cardinals. They did well. David Johnson, 34 yards, rushing and 1 touchdown. Edmonds, 34 as well. Kyler Murray, 32 himself. I guess with Kyler Murray, if there's any example you can try to copy, it's in his own division, and they already played him in Arizona, and that was Russell Wilson. If you learn from Russell Wilson of how to play quarterback and how to run like he's doing a little what Russell Wilson does. It's pretty cool to see. Some plays where Kyler Murray gets away, rolls out, either makes the play with his arm or he's making the play with his legs. It's pretty cool to see. Fitzgerald with 69 yards receiving, David Johnson with 68 and the touchdown, Bird with 60. So shout out to the Cardinals. I mean, a lot of people, I want to say, and I did too, I had the Falcons winning. And I'll never pick the Falcons again. They could play the Buccaneers, they could play the Bengals, I don't care. I will never pick the Falcons again. I can't, I don't understand what the hell's going on with the Falcons. Same thing here with Dallas Cowboys as they went to New Jersey to play the Jets. Welcome back, Mono Man. It was Sam Darnold. It was the Cowboys and Jets. At the half, it was all Jets. It was 21-6. The Cowboy Nation was, well, they were freaking out. And there was Shannon Sharp, and there was other people. Stephen A. Smith just giddy. Let's just say. Dallas did make a comeback, but the Jets did enough defensively to win 24-22 over the Cowboys. Prescott with 277 yards, but no touchdowns and no picks. He's been getting the blame because you feel like as a guy whose agent goes out and says, "Hey, I want my client to get 40 million," and I think he deserves it, even though he's only won one playoff game. These games against the teams you're supposed to beat and you lose, these games can't happen. That can't happen. I don't care who you are. Ezekiel Elliott had 105 yards rushing and one touchdown. It wasn't his fault. Uh, Tyvon Austin, 64 yards, receiving. Witten with 57, Gallup with 48, Elliott with 47, Wilson with 46 himself. Shout out to Matt. Cowboys are 3-3. I would love to hear your opinion on it. We'll hear about it on the Grinds for sure. Coming up on Wednesday. Shout out to the Grinds. Look for that on YouTube and their Facebook and Instagram, all their platforms. They will have. I bet Matt will have a definite opinion about Prescott and his boys. Sam Darnold, welcome back. 338 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 pick. I was waiting for someone not to high five him. He was running off the field or something, but everything seemed okay. Le'Veon Bell, 50 yards and 1 touchdown. He, for once, did not have to carry the load in losses. And look what happened. The Jets won. Robbie Anderson had a great game against that Cowboys secondary. 125 yards receiving and 1 touchdown. Jamison Crowder had a great game too, 98 yards receiving. Thomas was 62. Ty Montgomery had 17. Griffin had a touchdown for the Jets in the air. So that was a definite shocker. And there was something to come too. In this wild week that we had in week 6. Titans, Broncos, gosh. Same thing with the Falcons. I will never pick the Falcons again. Excuse me. And now I will never pick the Titans again. And look what the Broncos have done. They could easily be at least 4-2, 5-1. They just had some bad luck, had some bad games. But the Broncos now have won 2 in a row. They won in Carson last week. They defeat the Titans 16-0. The Broncos had 7 sacks against Mariota. Tannehill even came in for the Titans. They're just out of ideas with the Titans. This is probably Mariota's last year with the Titans. Because contract year's coming up. You got to say to yourself, he can't be the guy going forward. He hasn't shown anything. Maybe it's the scheme. I don't know. But it's just not working there with the Tennessee Titans. Broncos led 6-0 at the half and then got 10 in the second half. Again, 16-0 shutout over Tennessee. Tannehill with 144 yards passing and 1 touchdown. Took over for Mariota, had 63 yards and 2 interceptions. Tannehill had one pick as well. Travis Henry did nothing on the ground. Credit again to that Bronco defense, even without Bradley Chubb up front, they're doing the job well. And Chris Harris Jr., he's doing the job as well. He got an interception. Humphreys with 47 yards for the tight ends in the air. Delaney Walker with 43. Chris Davis with 36. But that was it. That was all. Bronco defense again with 7 sacks on the day. Joe Flacco, he had a Joe Flacco day. It was a downgrade. 177 yards passing with a pick. Philip Lindsay did enough. 70 yards and 1 touchdown. Freeman with 34. Sutton again with a magical great game. 76 yards receiving. He's having a pretty good year. Freeman out of the backfield with 42. So the Broncos did just enough, but against, let's say, a better team, which is coming up Thursday night, it will be the Chiefs going to the Broncos. We'll see how better the Chiefs will be at Mile High, and we'll preview that coming up for sure. Now, the other LA game. Well, I don't say LA, but at Soccer Stadium in Carson. This was bad from the start for the Chargers. Pittsburgh came to town, and you know what? They bring their towels. They bring their fans. They bring the black and yellow, and it was evident throughout the whole soccer stadium. It was embarrassing. It was something. Well, I'm not going to say I hate to see because I'm enjoying it very well. Being in San Diego County, I know how people feel about the Chargers leaving, how they did about Spanos leaving. And this is a reason why on the title of the video, on the cover, I should say, of the video that you see and you click on, hopefully, and tell your friends to click on for sure, why I'll show the Steeler blackout at the Charger game on Sunday Night Football, which is also bad because everybody saw the black and yellow blackout. And I had a couple of friends that are Steeler fans that went to that game. And they said, oh, yeah, it was 80% Steeler fans. At least on one side, it was all black and yellow on the Steeler side. And then on the sideline, behind the goalpost going north, it was all Steeler fans. And, yeah, that was awful. Anyway, on the field, at halftime, it was 21-0, and then 24-0 after 3. Chargers did make a comeback. Tired defense by the Steelers after a great first half. Chargers did score 17 unanswered in the fourth, but ended up holding on 24-17. And this for sure was an upset, but it felt like it felt like a home game for the opposition. And every game it seems to happen for the Chargers. And it makes me think, hey, okay, if the league has all these terrible things going on, wouldn't they like to fix one thing and make it right? And either force Dean to sell the Chargers, have someone buy him, move him back to San Diego with a stadium plan in place, because the stadium in San Diego is still there. But there's a thing going on in San Diego where there's a bidding war. The Aztecs are trying to buy San Diego State so they could build their little college football stadium. There's also other people trying to buy the land for themselves and build property on it. But I think the right thing to do would have Dean sell the team and move him back to San Diego, because it seems like the only fans of the team are in San Diego. and they're all hate watching according to the TV ratings in San Diego. They're hate watching the Chargers losing like this, and they're loving every moment of it. I mean, they got the barbecues, they got the fish tacos, they got the popcorn. I mean, that's kind of unhealthy for San Diego, but they got the protein shakes, they got the kale shakes, they got everything kale. Like I said, fish tacos, the IPA beer, they got everything in San Diego. They're loving this Charger demise up in LA. Anyway, third string quarterback that got to start, Hodges, and we know he's well, because of Sunday Night Football, we knew that he loves duck calling. He's a champion in that, where he's from. So that was a cool thing to see. I mean, he fits a Steelers well, I guess. 132 yards passing for him, one touchdown and one pick. Snell Jr. on the ground at 75 yards rushing. Connor with that uh, pretty cool touchdown and 41 yards rushing on ground. Connor also had 78 yards rushing and one touchdown receiving. Excuse me, 78 yards receiving and one touchdown receiving. Again, another game where Juju did not get the ball much, and you understand with the third string quarterback starting out there. He had one reception out of four for 7 yards. But I think the star of the game, at least in the first half, first quarter, Bush Jr. For the Steelers. He had a fumble recovery for a touchdown and a pick. He was simply amazing. As I looked at the attendance, there was 25,425. I thought they could fit 27,000 in there. I don't know what's going on in that situation. Philip Rivers, there's whatever fans are out there. I know a few. Shout out Sandra. Uh, they want Rivers' head. They they want to move on. 320 yards passing, two touchdowns and two picks. He was trying to lead him back in that fourth again, and it looked kind of scary for him. Melvin Gordon, this was his first run, but he had 8 carries and 8 carries and 18 yards. That was it. He's just not fitting in. All that time he missed in training camp, in preseason, and all the film work, just not working. And again, people are looking at Eckler and saying, why aren't you putting him in the game? If you're going to do these little out passes for 2 or 3 yards, why not have Eckler there catching them, game blocking up ahead so Eckler can get yards? That's just not happening right now for the Chargers. Hunter Henry on his way back had 100 yards and two touchdowns. That was the bright spot along with Rivers in the fourth. Uh, Mike Williams with 72 yards receiving. Moore with 43. Keenan Allen, who only had 13 last week with 33 yards receiving. Gordon with 30 out of the backfield. Eckler with only 14. The tight end Green with 15. So I'm enjoying it, but I guess it's really sad, I guess, but whatever. Spanos wanted to move, and he's building his own grave there. That's for sure. The Monday night game. Now this was just the Lions led the whole way, and then the favoritism that this league will show for Aaron Rodgers and the Packers. Well, it reared its ugly head Monday night. There were two calls against the Detroit Lions that shouldn't have been on Johnson. As the Lion defense did a great job the whole game. Stafford did a pretty good job just managing and making decisive throws. Uh, so let's break it down. So Lions led 13-10 at the half. Lions did get in the third quarter a couple of field goals. The Packers won. Then they exchanged field goals in the fourth, and then ended up getting a touchdown to Green Bay. There was two penalties again on Johnson, the defensive end for the Lions, that were not penalties at all. There was a hands to the face call where the Packer left tackle ended up putting his head back, but Johnson was only holding his collar on the shoulder pad of his jersey. He was just holding here, and you can see the Packer put his head back, making it look like he's got his hand in the face mask, or pulling it or something. Uh, and then there was another one that they called Johnson on that didn't make any damn sense at all. I kept looking for it and looking at it. I, I don't know. I think that was just giving the Packers a chance to make Monday night um memorable. I'm sorry to all the Packer fans. I feel differently, but um, it's just, you want to like this league. You want to like the diversity it has, but then you see the favoritism toward a certain team, and you're saying nothing will change. Just think, if you're a Lions fan, you say, "Hey, nothing will change. We keep losing to him. This time it wasn't even us. It wasn't our fault. He didn't throw a Hail Mary. Rodgers did against us. It was the referees. It was giving them another shot, and that's what happened." Stafford, 265 yards passing, no touchdown, no picks. Excuse me. Johnson, 34 yards and one touchdown. I guess he got the ball over in that touchdown. I don't know. Galladay with 5 receptions and 121 yards. He was awesome. Hall with 58. Uh, Kenyon Johnson out of the backfield with 27. Hackinson with 21, and Jones Jr. with 17. Jesse James with 8. For Green Bay, they definitely got lucky. Rodgers, 283 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, and 1 pick. Williams had a great game on the ground. Not Jones this time. 104 yards for Williams, 47 for Jones. Rodgers with an important 10 rushing yards, I guess. Laslard had a great game for the Packers, receiving 65 yards and 1 touchdown. Mercedes Lewis had a big catch for 50 yards. Valdez Scandling, before he left, had 48 yards receiving. Allison with 40. Williams with 32 and 1 touchdown. So Williams had a great game. But the game was mirrored definitely by the two penalties that shouldn't have been against Detroit, that gave the Lions uh, heartburn, and it gave the Packers another chance, two more chances. So again, that I wish the referees. You want them to do a better job. You want you want to think that the league isn't rigged. You want to think that, hey, um, it, it's just stupid. Anyway, that was Monday night. The Packers get the win. Mason Crosby gets the field goal at the end, leaped into the stands. Lambeau leaped. That was, I think, the first time a kicker. A new Packer fans could help me, but I think that's the first time a kicker, Lambeau, leaped into the stands. Again, it should have never happened. I'm still, yeah, that's all cool and all, but still, I'm still kind of pissed about that. The two calls that were. Let's go to the standings, because I need to get off that topic. I get pissed about stuff like that, because you want to like the league, you want to enjoy it, but it's like, okay, watch, they're going to get help. Bam, it happens. For the AFC East, the Patriots rolling 6-0. They lead they lead the division undefeated 6-0. The Bills 4-1. They're awesome. Had the week off and they're ready to go again. The Jets are 1-4. Congrats, got their first win. Miami 0-5. They gave Washington their first win. Excuse me. In the AFC North, the Ravens are 4-2. The shocking Cleveland Browns, in a bad way, are 2-4. The Steelers are right behind them at 2-4. The Bengals are 0-6. AFC South. This is pretty good. Houston 4-2. Indianapolis 3-2. Remember, they had the bye as well as the Bills. With the Jacksonville, Tennessee loss, they go to 2-4. In the AFC West, now this is intriguing. I mean, look at my background. Of course, I'm going to be intrigued. The Kansas City Chiefs are 4-2 with their loss. The Raiders are on a bye at 3-2, and the Broncos have leaped the Chargers. They are both 2-4. You understand why the Broncos are ahead of the Chargers? They beat them. For the NFC, you feel like right now, 9-7 or even an 8-8 record will get the division for sure. In the NFC East, Dallas is slightly ahead of Philadelphia, but they're both 3-3. New York Giants are 2-4, and Washington, congrats, had their first win at 1-5. In the NFC North, Packers 5-1, should be 4-2. Minnesota 4-2. The Bears that were off 3-2, and the Detroit Lions 2-2-1 should be 3-1-1, 3-2, yeah, 3-1-1. The NFC South, Saints 5-1, and Breeze may come back pretty soon. I never lost hope in the Saints. Hey, they still have a great defense. They still have weapons. Now, granted, Kamara, he got hurt. He wasn't doing much anyway. But Teddy Bridgewater, he's just managing the game. He doesn't have to do too much. Just make the right passes. And Michael Thomas, Jared Cook, they'll make the right decisions. So shout out Matthew Barty. He's a Saints fan. I see him on the Man Cave. 5-1 Saints in first in the South. Carolina 4-2. Kyle Allen doing great. 4-game win streak. Cam is healthy, he says. So Ron Rivera, Riverboat Ron, he has a tough decision. Do you go with Cam or do you keep with the hot hand of Kyle Allen as they get the win over the Buccaneers, who are 2-4 now in London? Atlanta, the most disappointing story I think you can say in the league. They're 1-5 and they're in desperate need of a bye. And I think the most surprising team, maybe, in the NFC West, but out of the whole league, I think, are the undefeated 5-0 San Francisco 49ers. And right behind them, the Seattle Seahawks 5-1. The Rams are now 3-3, but I expected some drop off because of Gurley's arthritis in his knee. He obviously got hurt with another injury. I believe it was a thigh. But even with that, you knew he wasn't going to be the same. So right now, Rams 3-3 in third. And in fourth, I don't want to say last because they won 2 straight, the Arizona Cardinals, 2-3-1. Again, shout out to Kyler Murray for doing what he needs to do to win. That's shout out Kyler Murray for sure. The first pick, he's making things happen, and that's hard to do with the Arizona Cardinals because you really don't know what you don't really know what to do with them in the front office, and there's a lot of front offices right now really questionable for sure. So week 7, just do a quick preview of the Thursday night game because I'll probably join you again on the chair for a week 7. Can you believe it? Week 7? We're already at week 7. Wow. Uh, it'll be the 4-2 Chiefs going to the 2-4 Broncos. Expect my eye to be loud, and the Chiefs to not be the same. But you figure somehow they'll get the win in Denver, unless the Chiefs self-destruct again, and that'll be fun. We'll also have on the chair uh, the Raider weekly preview. We will preview the Raiders going to Green Bay, because that would be a tough task. We also have the referees to play against, probably. Uh, Again, just I feel bad for the Lions fans. There's a guy, last name Baker, on the Man Cave, and feeling for you, man. Uh, these refs ain't loyal, and Spanos ain't loyal. Uh, Everybody ain't loyal. No, there's a few. So that's been the chair. We recapped week 6 of the NFL, and we'll see you next time on the chair with James. But also wanted to say there should be an every NBA preview coming up because, yes, I love football. Well, I'm starting to hate it now. Uh, the basketball is one thing I really enjoy watching and breaking down and assuming, I guess you could say, Clippers. You know, been with, been watching them for a while, and it's going to be a pretty good season, I believe. Uh, we'll see what happens, but we'll have a preview for sure, maybe on the weekend, about the NBA and the LA Clippers. So stay tuned for that. Hell, we might have a food review out of nowhere. I haven't done one yet. I just haven't had the desire to go out and get something, you know. But I do get paid this week, so we'll see what I come up with. So this has been the chair. I will see you next time. It's been real.